is that strong increase in earnings a reflection of telecom, for example, or is the strength more broad-based in your view?
In our opinion, the strength is more broad-based than that. In fact, I think telecom is one of those places in the S&P 500 where you haven't had the majority of companies actually report yet. But if you look at, on our model, which is I think a little bit different than how some other people on the street do it, we actually look at the earnings number relative to where consensus was 6 months ago versus where consensus was right before earnings, which we think gives us a little bit truer idea of whether it actually beat or not. The numbers we're getting are actually the best since we started compiling this data about 2 or 3 years ago. So it's very encouraging.
Wait a minute. The numbers are the best in what sense relative to where we stood 6 months ago?
Exactly. Yeah. The percentage of companies who have been able to beat earnings relative to where the expectations were 6 months ago, that percentage is actually higher than in any other quarter since the beginning of 2011 when we started looking at things this way. And that's actually true not only for earnings but also for revenue. So in our opinion...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, finish the thought.
Well, I was just going to say that in our opinion, the earnings season has been one of the best we've had in probably, 16, 20 quarters.
So, Steph, people who say this market is all the Fed, I mean, it sounds like there's something more to it.
And I think also if you listen to what the companies are actually saying, they are saying that the U.S. is recovering, that Europe is stabilizing. There are pockets of China that are okay. Go back to Caterpillar, right? Everybody thought that was going to be doom and gloom, and they weren't. Sure, mining was crummy, but power gen was much better than expected. Cummins, they're talking about a bottoming in the truck cycle. Look at Disney, look at CBS, we just talked about. I think there are definitely pockets, and companies that are delivering should go higher, and they should deserve a higher premium.
So what I'm wondering is, where are the jobs? That's the expression that we hear in Washington all the time. If the earnings are so good, if things are turning around, if there is a little bit of oomph to this economy, why are we seeing the flat jobs report? Why did we see Janet Yellen come out yesterday?
Did we talk about stock buybacks before, or was it my imagination?
Is that what you think? Is that the missing
link? They're not putting the resources.
But companies are also running more efficient.
No, you give somebody a big to-do list. You give them everybody else's to-do list. When you lay them off, they're more productive. I understand how that works, too. That doesn't create more jobs either. I think
Janet Yellen came out yesterday and said she was surprised to see that jobs were so flat. I mean, that tells you that
wait a minute,
everyone looking at this data is saying that this should be turning around, and it's not.
Are the corporation's job to create jobs or create earnings or create value?
You would think that jobs would follow earnings. I'm not saying anybody has a moral responsibility to do one thing.
Let me, guys, all right. Time out. But there's a very interesting point in this, actually, which people are starting to talk about, and it's this. Companies don't hire because they're profitable. They hire because there's demand to meet.
Right.
Especially when you're growing a business. You hire people because you have to, not necessarily because you want to. Chris, can you shed any light on this phenomenon? Is there something unusual going on relative to historical standards?
Well, I guess in our opinion, it kind of comes down to productivity. We just got done talking about Cisco earnings, and outside of Cisco, the tech earnings actually have been quite good in the U.S. Thus far this quarter. I mean, so these companies are selling a lot of goods and services in the tech sector. Essentially, over time, that's destroying jobs, in my opinion, because companies are making do with less.